Welcome to the Daily Insider here on VegasInsider.com. I am Kevin Rodgers, and it's Monday, October 18th, 2021. So much going on. We have NBA beginning tomorrow with two games, Nets and Bucks, Warriors, Lakers, and that marathon begins. NHL season already underway. The championship series underway in Major League Baseball. Already the Braves up 2-0 on the Dodgers. Astros, Red Sox play game 3 at Fenway tonight, tied at 1. And, of course, NFL and college football, the end of Week 6 coming tonight between the Bills and the Titans in Tennessee. And we'll see if Buffalo stays on fire with a fifth straight win. And that's something that we'll keep an eye on coming up. And Dave Sharapan will join us, as he does every Monday, coming up in just a moment. Before we get to Dave, I want to tell you about our friends at BetMGM. They are the king of sportsbooks, and a great promotion running right now for new players only. Bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. Bet on any NFL money line, and if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. Again, for new players only, must be 21 or older. Eligible in Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and D.C. Full terms and conditions apply. That is BetMGM. They are the king of sportsbooks. Now we speak to our friend. He's the king of Las Vegas and the king of hats, right? Is that fair to say? Dave Sharapan, Sportsbook Consigliere on Twitter, joins us every Monday. He's got his Red Sox gear on tonight. Oh, Dave, I don't even know where to begin with you. I want to talk baseball with you in a little bit, but how are the books doing this morning? Is everybody still got a job?
I haven't heard specifically from anybody yet this morning, but wow. Just a couple weeks ago, everybody knew everything and it just was having a good day and everything was fine. And the favorites win. Sometimes they win and cover. You can't help it. I mean, that afternoon session yesterday, 7 for 7, man, it was brutal. But the books were fun. I got out and got in the afternoon, and watching the games in the book is just, there's always energy. But when people are winning, man, it's fun. It is fun. You're in the book and people are hooting and hollering and yelling and screaming, and you forget when you're in a risk room or you're in the corporate office in the back, you forget that it's fun to win and it sucks to lose. I've been in that room on days like that, and I literally sent a couple texts to some guys that I know is still in the business, and I'm like, "You good?" And the answer from one of them was like, I'm like, all right, let me know. I'll talk to you later. I know they don't want to talk. I know that it's bad. And yeah, it was one of those days yesterday. I mean, you can't, if you're not going to move the number and be different and mitigate your risk when all the favorites win, you get carried out. That's what happens.
I mean, Dave, from a sports or from an oddsmaker perspective, what do you do when you mentioned the 7 early games yesterday? We take out Jacksonville beating Miami in the London game, but the 7 1 o'clock games, 6 of them are decided by 10 points or more. Minnesota was in control of that game until Carolina tied, and Minnesota still won by 6 with the overtime touchdown. But the Colts, you couldn't have made that line any higher. They were laying 11.5, and they still blow out Houston. The Chiefs were down to Washington. They end up pulling away. You see what Baltimore did to the Chargers. The Bengals destroy the Lions. The Rams against the Giants. What are you supposed to do as an oddsmaker in those spots?
You can always just move the number and see if you can get a bet. I mean, when your risk is all one-sided or, that heavy on the game, then move the number. But again, sometimes nobody's betting it. You could have, I think, made that number 14 with the Colts yesterday. Nobody was betting Houston. You got some money on the Giants. When you went to 9 and it closed at 7.5 in places. So you kind of went in with the Giants as the book. It didn't get there. I mean, that's the thing. You're not generating two-way action. You're kind of just, you need games. And as the book, more often than not, you need the dogs because they can't all lose. They can't all not cover until they do. And then, again, books get beat. So, I mean, you can't win. It's gambling, Kev. Like, and you're going to lose sometimes. I've explained it to the executives in the room. Like, what happened? All the favorites won. We couldn't win. And like, you go into a game tonight, everything from yesterday. You think yesterday's bad. You go into work today, you can't win. It doesn't matter what happens. If Buffalo wins and covers and a game goes over, you lose a gigantic amount. If Buffalo doesn't cover but wins and it goes over, you lose just short of a gigantic amount. If Buffalo doesn't win and it goes under, you lose just under that amount. And then you keep going down the ladder, and there's no scenario tonight that can happen that you go, hey, we win money tonight, because everything from yesterday rolls to today, and you can't win. It's not a fun day today at work.
Now, what were your thoughts on the end of the Cowboys-Patriots game? Just a back-and-forth affair, very entertaining. Dallas takes the lead. New England takes the lead, a long touchdown. Cowboys tie it up late, and then you have the walk-off touchdown, and you say to yourself, man, we were that close by killing all the teasers, by having the underdog, and yet Dallas still walks off, wins, and covers.
Yeah. Dallas, as you pointed out to me last week on this show, is the last undefeated team against the spread. And they still are. And I would have not said that. I didn't think there was a chance in hell that would have continued, with 5 minutes to go in the game. No way can that possibly happen. Then it gets to overtime, and they both don't score. So all they got to do is get a field goal. I would have bet everything I had they're going to kick a field goal, and instead he hits them with the touchdown. Entertaining, yes. As a book guy, just gut-wrenching, nauseating, and in the book with, Dallas fans screaming, listen, I don't know when Jimmy Johnson said it. It's been a long time. But if you don't hear, how about them Cowboys, when you're in a book and they do something, anything, and get a first down, let alone a touchdown or covering, then you're not in the right place, because somebody yells it every single time.
How much of a killer is that too, Dave, that Dallas, who was 0-7, 0-8 ATS to start last year, they're 6-0 ATS out of the gate this year?
You can't do anything as when a public team like that. I mean, they bet the Cowboys anyway. So now, your position is perfect. I mean, the number went as high as 4, and then you get the bad guy to play the game, and all right, that's my top, just like it was when New England was home against Tampa. You knew 7 was the peak, and you came back to 6.5, and you let the bets just roll in. That game was probably a big swing, like a monster swing from New England winning to New England just covering to now Dallas just covered. I mean, it was probably, in a lot of books, a 7-figure swing when everything said and done. So you can't do anything when they bet the public teams like that and they keep winning. I mean, I don't know. We're going to see an inflated line when Dallas comes back from the bye, probably, depending on who they play. But I know books are going, whew, at least Buffalo's off next week. Dallas is off next week. The Chargers, finally, they're off. You can't figure out what to do with the Charger games. And then, so when the people finally bet them, they get housed by Baltimore, and every sharp guy in the world was on Baltimore. And, I mean, the NFL, it still delivers. It's sometimes the product is rough, like that Steeler game last night. Wasn't really a fun watch, and somehow it fell right around the number for the total. But, man, it's tough to pick games. I think it's tougher now than ever to actually pick games and bet real money on this stuff between the calls, the way the game is played out now, and everything. It's hard, man.
Dave, I want to go to the Steelers, and I almost feel like for the books, how much did that save them, if at all, because you didn't have a favorite come through in the Sunday night game? Pittsburgh was up comfortably in that game, and Seattle came back, tied it, went to overtime, and you're just hoping you don't need another walk-off touchdown by the Steelers to cover, but they got the field goal, so Pittsburgh got the win, but Seattle got the cover.
Yeah, Kev, I was so entranced with being in the book for the afternoon session of the football games. I ended up staying for the entire game for Steelers, Seahawks, along with Braves, Dodgers. And wow, I was watching the game going, I never really felt like the Steelers were in complete control, even though when they were up 2 scores, they just find a way to like play right to the level of competition. They don't put anybody away anymore. And it's because they can't run the ball when they have to run the ball, which is you have to run the ball in the NFL when you're up and you keep the other team off the field. The clock just runs out, becomes a math problem. There's not enough time to get back in the game, and you put the games away. That's why there's no blowouts anymore, very rarely, because teams can't do that. And the Steelers found the way to let the Seahawks come back in the game. And wow, like they had to tie the game with a field goal and then win the game with another field goal after it looked like Geno was going to take him down. Geno Smith is still in the league and still playing quarterback for an NFL team. And actually played well enough to win the game. I think Seattle's interesting going forward without Russ. Automatic bet against in your head. They come up and cover the spread. And, we'll look forward to now they get to play Monday night at home. Another big dog, I think. Value side, probably Seattle. I don't know what to make of the Steelers, Kevin. I just think that they're in the hardest division in football. And I'm watching Ben age and years. I mean, that was a fumble, despite what Steeler fans want to say. It was a fumble. He wasn't throwing the ball. He was trying to put it down and fumble the ball. Now, the end of that game, Kevin, I have no explanation for. I have no idea what DK Metcalf was thinking. All he had to do was step out of bounds. He did not. The ball gets punched out, which is the new form of tackling in the NFL. It's just a left or right cross to punch the ball. Nobody's looking to take anybody to the ground. They're looking to get a turnover. The ball comes out, it gets spotted, then they get to review the play. What happened? They didn't down the ball, then they did, no. All right, wait, okay, you get to kick a field goal. I do not understand what goes on. You want to change the NFL for the better, for the fan, for everybody. Put mics on those guys when they have those huddles so everybody can hear what they're saying, or you can hear the process when they get talked to in the ear. What are we hearing? And then I think everybody will feel much better about it.
You mentioned the AFC North, Cleveland. They'll play Thursday against Denver and the Browns. They're a beat-up team right now. But Arizona, no Cliff Kingsbury. They had coaches test positive for COVID. Doesn't matter. Doesn't make a difference. They're still undefeated. They were getting points against the Browns. They dominated that game. Browns had a late Hail Mary at the end of the first half, and that was it. I mean, what about this Arizona team, Dave? I mean, where do you put them moving forward in the NFC? Already got the Bucs. You got the Rams, you got the Packers, you got the Cowboys, and Arizona's got a better record than all of them. Pretty impressed.
And I've been one, tooting the horn. The Cardinals aren't this good. They're not. They just can't be. They're going to go through a stretch here where they're going to come back to reality. And every single week they put up 30-plus points. And they blow out what appear to be a good team going in. And it certainly doesn't look like Cleveland's a good team now. And you're right, they're beat up. I'm impressed. I really am. I'm super impressed with Arizona, both sides of the football, and the energy. This was the week I think they could have not come up with the excuse, but could have succumbed to the adversity and, coaches in here and all this other stuff. Now I'm thinking they don't need the coach at all. Like whoever called the plays, it did pretty good. And you're right. They limited Cleveland to almost nothing. Cleveland just put up 41 the week before against the Chargers. At the Chargers. So, man, I don't know. I mean, they're the best team in the NFC. They're the best team right now, right there with Tampa and Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay's right there too. Like the NFC, I think I forgot the Rams. Like there's so many teams right there. Arizona's obviously near the top of the heap.
You mentioned the Packers, Dave, and I mean Aaron Rodgers, this guy. So let's review. Week 1 against New Orleans, the game that was not at the Superdome was in Jacksonville due to the hurricane. So they don't have to worry about that. Green Bay just gets destroyed. Aaron Rodgers, he looks terrible. What's wrong with the Packers? 5 weeks later, they're 5-1. and just dominating everybody. And they're the class of the NFC North again. We put them in that class with everyone atop the NFC. Everything's fine, apparently, with Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, and my life situation and being able to reflect, like, I don't say regret or, worry about anything in the past, but I wish we would have had this FU Aaron Rodgers 10 years ago. I love it. I can't get enough of it. I swear. He's, the belt, and that I own you to Chicago. Like, he is owning this, like, role, but it looks like he's having so much fun again. And I love it. I just can't get enough of it. The Packers, people can't get enough of them betting them. I mean, they're road favorites, 4.5, move it up to 6. Finally get a bet back, but it don't matter. You can't avoid the Packers. Now they open up 9.5 against Washington. You better go to 10. Who's going to take Washington against the Packers at home? You want to be in the book and you want to be an oddsmaker and wonder why we need this side for so much? Move the number. Take a bet or two. Try to get some Washington money. Sometimes you're going to have to overmove these numbers to get bets. Who's betting against Aaron Rodgers right now, Kevin? Are you? Because I certainly am not.
No, he's played very well. And again, the Packers look like a major threat in the NFC. We're looking ahead to next week, Dave, and you have some heavy numbers already. One of them, I find this intriguing. So you have the Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, Sean McVay reunion next week in LA. Rams are laying 15 against the Lions.
Yeah.
Detroit was destroyed by Cincinnati at home. Bengals have been a very good story this year.
Yeah.
But can I just say this, Dave? That seems like a lot of points. It really does, where the Lions have had some close, tough losses already to the Ravens and to the Vikings on late field goals. That seems like a ton of points. And don't forget, the Rams did lose to the Jets at home as a heavy favorite too last year.
Yep. And I am guilty. Sign me up for someone who continues to find value in Detroit every week. Like what I saw last couple weeks and said, oh, yep, they're at home. You're giving me 3.5 against Cincinnati? Oh, I'm taking it. And destroyed. I mean, no tears after this game for Coach Campbell, but tears for everyone that was holding a Detroit ticket, which there weren't that many of us, but it happens. It does seem like a lot of points, Kevin. It's supposed to sound and feel like that's what you're supposed to say when you see this line. You're not supposed to say, oh, I'm definitely taking the Rams. Sometimes you got to go on the offensive by playing defense in the book. You got to put up a number that makes people pause and go, oh, I don't know about that game. And that's the thing that happens, and that's the danger of putting up the big numbers. You don't get a bet at all rather than get a bet on the other side. People aren't interested in taking Detroit. They're just not interested at the Rams at that price, so it moves on. And the big spread games become too much of a kind of math problem for people, and those are less handle games. Believe me, the book would rather have every game be 3 and you pick. Go ahead. We'll take action on both sides and slide the number here and there. Some will be 3.5, some will be 2.5. It might be 7. First month of the season. That's what it was. A lot of 7s and 3s. That's it. Now we get to, the numbers get better. The numbers get harder. It's supposed to get harder. And it's supposed to get a little bit harder for the odds makers too to come up with better numbers. And I'm telling you, they do. I think betting the NFL from middle of the season on is tougher than almost anything. But it's been tough now because of the way the game's been played. You got to make it tough for the bettors because now everybody has the answer key, Kevin. Everybody won last week.
So you have Rams laying 15, the Bucs laying 13.5 against the Bears, the Cardinals laying 17 against the Texans. And I know Houston is not very good, and the Colts just ran them. I always have this feel, Dave, especially in the NFL, that I told you about the Lions. They played bad against the Bengals, but the Texans were bad against the Colts, that if they got squeezed, then you say, all right, I don't know if they can have it the next week. But then if you get blown out, I say, you can't be any worse the next week. I really believe that. Now, the Buccaneers, man, they're like a runaway train. That's hard. Like I took the Eagles Thursday night, and that was very, very tough to swallow. watching that, and they got lucky by covering at the end. But to take Chicago, I don't know how the Bears can outshoot the Bucs in that game.
No way. I mean, that number, I'm surprised that isn't already 14. It will be. We do the show every Monday. It'll be 14 maybe by the end of the day today, or certainly by tomorrow once you get through the Monday Night Football. You have to do this stuff. Like, you have to change these numbers. You have to get up and get that dog money. Now, every once in a while, like last season, you're right. I believe the Rams were 17-point favorites against the Jets. Somewhere in that neighborhood, lost outright. It was a monster game for the books because it took down every single teaser. You throw that type of money line, on your money line parlay, just to always like add a little bit more to the payout. I don't think it's always worth it. And when it loses, you're like left wondering, and you probably never do it again. It's like touching a hot stove. You do it once and you go, okay, I'm not going to do that again. It hurt. Yeah, man, these numbers are expect this between the haves and the have-nots, I call them. I mean, the teams that are elite and really good, top of the league, top of the power ratings, against the teams that are bad and keep finding ways to lose and sometimes just get blown out, like Detroit. Like Houston's not even trying. I mean, they say they're trying, but they're trying to lose, trying to get, another number one draft pick. They're putting a roster out there that's just not competitive. And they've had some injuries already. So it's accepted that, like, we're going to lose. Well, in the book, we know you're going to lose too. We just need to know by how much. It's a hard balancing act. And then, you're staring at the face of tomorrow in the NBA starting in the book. So again, there's so many things going on. October's amazing.
How hard is your job at this point in October when you used to have, I know hockey doesn't have as big, you don't have as many bets on hockey, but hockey used to have about a 2 or 3 week window by itself as far as a daily sport. This was like 6 days. And now the NBA is going to start. You'll have college basketball in a few weeks. We've talked about that in the past. And 350 teams is impossible to keep an eye on that. You got the baseball, you got hockey, NBA, football. I mean, how do you handle all this stuff without the soccer and everything else that's going on too?
It's a fun time of year, and it's also the hardest time of year. This transition, and you're right, like the NBA used to be at the end of October. I always used to, Halloween was my target date for NBA. You would do the work, the off-season work, and you really didn't have to put up preseason numbers because nobody touched that stuff. Now with the proliferation of the competition of people trying to get, more customers, offer more this, offer more that, offer more this, you have to do, you have to put up preseason games. You probably have to really book them because information is everything in the NFL preseason. Well, what do you think it is in any preseason? It's the same. It's hard, and you have a lot less limited action. So it's tough, man. I mean, I loved it. You have to love sports to love the job because it's stressful. It's very mentally, it's taxing. You got to know a lot of stuff. And I worked with some great guys who would be like, all right, listen, man, you take the basketball because no one else wants to watch it. We'll all watch the football. Obviously, you're a baseball guy. Keep an eye on that. We had a hockey guy or two, which was great because I was doing the hockey anyway. But we had a guy that would watch it. And every time he was there, I didn't even have to watch it on my screen. And he would keep an eye on stuff. So I think you have to learn, how the room works and who really wants to be there and who wants to watch certain stuff. And then the whole time, Kevin, the guy that does the college basketball is over there in the corner, and you just like leave that dude alone. He's reading magazines. He's reading articles. He's setting power ratings. He's trying to, learn the rotation for Canisius. I mean, he's over there working in the corner. You're like, you don't even want to bother that dude because you know what's coming. So you just leave him alone. Like, yeah, what's he doing over there? Let him go. Don't bother him. Let him go.
Now, I want your views on this with the baseball playoffs because I've noticed this. I feel like this has been, Dave, the last 3 or 4 years this has changed. You can't depend on any starting pitcher to go more than 4 or 5 innings, I feel like. Even like a Max Scherzer is getting pulled in the 5th inning. That last night, the Braves, they walk off past the Dodgers again, and Ian Anderson goes 3 innings. It's all bullpen. what was it, game one of Red Sox Astros, all bullpen, Sale doesn't last very long. How do you deal with that from the odds-making perspective now where you throw out the starting pitcher, it feels like, because they go 2 or 3 innings, they're done. It's a bullpen game.
So many things came out of COVID. I mean, I got a new life out of COVID after the stroke and everything, but I had to sit in that risk room and basically it was by myself. I mean, it was me and 2 other guys running the whole ship. And we had to throw away listing pitchers for regular season baseball. Where I went to the meeting. I said, how are we going to list pitchers? Guys are going to get scratched. It's going to be a nightmare. Pitching doesn't matter. Starting pitching doesn't matter. We'll just make a number based on the teams, the lineups, and who we think is going to start. And it may burn us and it may not. And I started to watch the game a little bit differently and realize how important the bullpens are. I mean, they've always been important to wins and losses. They're important to the lines, and they're important to – now you don't have to just check the starter and whether he's on full rest or not, or how his last 5 starts were and all that stuff. You got to check who's available in a bullpen. You got to check who pitched 2 or 3 days in a row because they're not available. So, oh, geez, it's worth a couple cents this way. They're not going to use him if it gets to that situation. I think you're seeing it in the postseason, Kevin. How do you make numbers for this stuff? You make it pick. Maybe slide, the favorite a little extra juice. So, you start somewhere. But making the lines in a postseason is one of the easiest things in the world for those of us that have done it. All the teams are pretty good. It's trying to make the number that somebody's going to bet the Tigers or the Diamondbacks against like the Dodgers or the Astros in August or September. You can't ever get a bet. Those are hard numbers to make. This one's easy. Both teams are good. It's picking, minus 115, minus 120, and 9. What else is it? 5-4 and small favorite Red Sox. So you just making the numbers is easy. It's hard to deal with when you don't know. And I think we all have the information now, and we all have all the games now and watching the games. There's no more blackouts. There's no more none of that stuff. It's awesome, man. I think it's hard to pick the winner. So when it's hard to pick the winner, it's easy to make the line. It's the games like we just talked about in the NFL where we know the winner, and now I got to come up with a number that's going to make you interested in the other side. That's the hard part.
So what are your views on what you've seen so far in these 2 series? The Red Sox should have won game 1. They blew it. They had the 2 grand slams early in game 2. So now they go back to Fenway, 1-1. They play tonight, and then Braves going out to LA up 2-0 and pray for the city of Atlanta. Hope they don't blow this one again. But what are your thoughts on these 2 series?
Well, we'll start with the American League tonight because they're playing tonight and have the the mantle, the showcase tonight. It's been I've been super impressed with Boston, from the stretch run to get in, the game against the Yankees, discovered something, and then that short series against the Rays. I mean, short series was 4 games, and they won 3 of them. Wow. Like, they're here, and they are this close to going to the World Series. And Houston just shows up, man. I mean, that lineup, there's no rest, there's no easy outs, but I think the Red Sox know what time it is. I mean, you want to talk about a celebration at home plate, Carlos Correa, you're going to go free agent on everybody. You're going to go probably end up playing shortstop for the Yankees. You're doing this, I know what time it is. It's my time in the middle of the game. Don't think that the Red Sox know what time it is, so I love it. And then, dude, the National League. I mean, the Dodgers had both games won. They did. And that Braves, from Pittsburgh, that tomahawk chop still stings. I hear it in my ears because the Pirates, baseball, I've known my true love for almost 50 years. When I hear that tomahawk chop, Kevin, I get that in me. But then how do you not root for it? I mean, like, the kid getting that hit yesterday was just awesome. And it's so much fun to watch. And again, it's hard to make the numbers because, I mean, look at game 3. Bueller's a heavy, heavy favorite. And I just want to see it go 7 games. I just want to see it come back. I want to see – at this point in the season, I used to sit in the book and they'd be like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I just want to see more of this. I'm rooting for more games. Yes, it's more handle. Yes, we'll do okay. I just want to see the games, man. It's just too much fun.
Do you hate Sid Bream because he played for the Pirates and scored the winning run, or because Barry Bonds couldn't throw him out the plate?
Sid he was a fan favorite in Pittsburgh. I mean, I liked Sid Bream. He was kind of that goofy looking, awkward left-handed swing. All he did was produce runs for the Pirates. And then he went to the Braves, and we're like, I remember thinking, I was in the fraternity house at Penn State. I had just talked to my dad to say I'll be home for the World Series. In between innings, I was like setting up. Dad, I'll blow class off on Friday. It's no problem. Get the tickets. I'll be there. And I'll bring, my brother who was at school. I'm like, I'll bring him. We'll be there. So make sure you get 4 for me, my 2 brothers, and him. We're going to go to World Series. Pirates are going to the World Series. Sid's on second. Oh, well, he ain't going to score on a ball to the outfield. Don't worry about it. I literally said it out loud. He ain't going to score. They'll throw him out. So we got to just get this guy out. Cabrera comes up. He can't. He's going to get a pinch hit. Belinda, come on. He gets the hit. It's to Bonds. He's going to throw him out. Get him. The throw's offline. Sid Bream, one of the slowest guys in Major League Baseball, slides in and lays there. My buddy, who I was in his room at the fraternity house, locked the door because he knew that all of my fraternity brothers from Philadelphia, from New York, it was a huge rivalry. They rooted against Pittsburgh. We rooted against Philadelphia. That's what we did. They were running through the hallways doing the tomahawk chop. Oh, I had to stay in that room. My fraternity brother, Norm, to this day, he says, you remember that night? He goes, you were going to kill somebody. I'm like, I know. They were pounding on the door. You wouldn't let them in. Thank you. You saved someone's life that night because I was getting madder and madder and madder. I'm watching the post game. My brother called me and said, I guess we're not going. I said, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'm staying at his house. I don't want to see anybody right now. So, yes, I hear that tomahawk chop and still get pissed to this day.
I got one more sore spot for you, if you don't mind, before we let you go.
Oh, hit me with everything, Kevin. What else would it be?
How upset were you when you saw Purdue just handle Iowa the other day?
Oh. I was glad you brought that up. I wasn't mad. I knew it was happening. I mean, the Big Ten eats its young. They can't even take success. A team is number 2 in the country, 12-point favorites, 11.5, whatever it was. And I'm watching the game on Saturday going, how did this team beat us? Like, I'm still, damn it, that hurt because Clifford got hurt. Iowa goes, and Iowa ain't going to go undefeated the rest of the way. Like, come on, Iowa. You're supposed to win that game, at least keep the dream alive another week. What are you doing? So now we got Penn State, Illinois. Penn State's going to destroy Illinois this week. They can't make the number high enough. Might as well be 30. I don't know how Illinois is going to compete in that game. Penn State's going to get Michigan. They're going to get Ohio State. All this stuff's coming. And the Big Ten somehow is going to get left out of a playoff, probably, because what's going to happen. Everybody's going to beat everybody, and then the Big Ten game ain't going to mean nothing because there's other teams. What's going to happen. They're not going to get a team in the playoff when everybody's losing except Georgia. Cincinnati's number 2 in the country. Cincinnati. They're going to get in, Kevin. I'm telling you right now. They're getting in.
And you know what? I'd like to see it.
I'm all for it.
See what they can do. And look, Cincinnati's not they don't exist anymore. They're on the WAC. They're on something they're in the American. They're going to go to the Big 12 eventually. Yeah. Let's see what they could do. If they get destroyed by Georgia or Alabama, so be it. But now we know.
I couldn't agree more. These arguments happen all the time in the book, and that's why I love college football. Because somebody is rooting for somebody everywhere. You have the games. The Saturdays are just electric from beginning to end of day. Here in Vegas with the time zone, it's fantastic. Cincinnati is legit. Their schedule, okay, they won every game. They've won every game. They deserve a shot at this thing. Now, what would the number be? It would be pretty big against Georgia. But, Kentucky was undefeated, and they're in the SEC. They were 22-point dogs at Georgia. It's crazy, I think, how good the good is, right? Like, Georgia is that good. Bama, you think they're a little bit pissed about the game against Texas A&M? What did they do? Alabama's going to be there. They have more NFL athletes, yes. But since he's good, man, I think it would be fun for all of us, college football fans, bettors, books, that a team like Cincinnati is in it just to add to the intrigue and add to the excitement. And then the books are going to need against them, just like every time Notre Dame gets in there and they play Alabama, can't make the number high enough, and they end up needing Notre Dame, and you know it. But at least you get some of that dog money because everybody wants to root for the underdog. And my friend Rob Meese just put out a great quote that's in his book I forgot about. But Michael Gaughan, South Point owner, said, the American public roots for the underdog, but they bet the favorite. It happens every single week.
It's a good one. I like that. Last thing, I'll let you go. You know anybody that bet on Louisiana Monroe to win outright against Liberty? 32-point dogs?
Nope. I mean, we're both on Twitter. There's probably somebody on Twitter that did because everybody on Twitter wins. It's unbelievable. I mean, but no, those are fun games. It's so fun to make those lines. I got buddies like between Mo Pearson and Matty Lindemann and those guys. They're making numbers for these games, and they tell me this stuff all the time. Like, wow, these numbers are too high. Like, I hope someone else puts it up so I can bet it somewhere else. Fun. But no, I don't know anybody that actually bet it because with that big of a favorite, the easy answer for the books is don't put it up because we don't know that much about it and nobody's really going to bet it. And if anybody's going to bet it, they're just going to bet the dog. I'll find out today. I'm going to reach out to a couple people and say, hey, you got any UL Monroe tickets that I can maybe tweet out or put something out? I'll let you know.
Dave Sharapan, you could find him on Twitter at Sportsbook Consigliere. He joins us every Monday on the Daily Insider, and we'll talk to him again next Monday. Dave, we appreciate it as always, and best of luck with any bets you got, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you next week. Tell Christopher I'm working on the other thing, too. I've been very busy.
No problem. You're a busy man. See ya. Thank you.
Yes.
There is Dave Sharapan joining us, and always great insight from Dave. Always like talking to him about everything, even about Sid Bream and that wooden stub he had on his leg running around the bases, and Barry Bonds still couldn't throw him out. Let's tell you about WynnBET now. And at WynnBET, you can get a $1,000 risk-free first bet. You can download the WynnBET app, the WynnBET mobile sportsbook app on iOS or Android, and when you download that app, you're a new patron, you get a $1,000 risk-free first bet with a $20 minimum first deposit and eligible sports bet when you use the promo code VI bonus. That means if you lose your first wager, you get it back up to $1,000 as a free bet credit that you can use for another bet. The WynnBET promo code will expire soon, so make sure to grab it while you can. Eligible in New Jersey, Colorado, Indiana, Virginia, Arizona, Tennessee, and Michigan. That is the $1,000 risk-free first bet from WynnBET. And we got the baseball tonight with the Red Sox and the Astros. And, Boston, they've hit the ball very well in this postseason. That you can give them. That it's a completely loaded lineup, and JD Martinez, he missed that wild card game against the Yankees. He's back in the lineup. You have Rafael Devers, you have Bogarts, but then Kike Hernandez, Verdugo, they got those guys from the Dodgers and the Mookie Betts deal. And it's like one of those situations where both sides won because Mookie Betts is an MVP, but those two guys, even though you didn't get an MVP necessarily for him, you got two quality players. So the Red Sox, they found a way to get through this season without the best starting pitching in the world. But, bullpen has been pretty decent, and they're not having these starting pitchers go very far in these games. You see with Chris Sale, he's not going far. Eduardo Rodriguez, he starts tonight for the Red Sox. Jose Urquidy goes for Houston. Urquidy hasn't pitched in about 2 weeks. He was supposed to go in Game 4 against the White Sox in the last round, but you had that rain out, pushed back a day, so McCullers went in that Game 4. He ended up getting hurt. But Urquidy hasn't gone for a while. He actually shut down the Red Sox when he faced them earlier this year. Eduardo Rodriguez gave up 6 earned runs each of his 2 starts against Houston. So keep an eye on that. And that total 9 tonight at Fenway Park. And then you have Dodgers, Braves tomorrow. Morton and Buehler on the mound. LA's a big favorite. Atlanta 2-0. And for the Braves, this is your opportunity. Up 3-1 last year in the NLCS, blew it. Up 2-0 here, 2 walk-off wins. So we'll see how that one turns out in Boston coming up tonight. And you have 4 games in the NHL. And among them tonight, the Seattle Kraken. They're on the road at Philadelphia. The Kraken so far 1-1-1 on the season. Flyers seeking their first victory. And Flyers laying about 125, 130 tonight at home. Toronto, a heavy favorite against the Rangers. Maple Leafs at 2-1-0. Rangers finally got their first win of the season over Montreal 2 nights ago. Out west, you have Ducks and Flames. Calgary nearly a $2 favorite against Anaheim. And the Flames coming off a loss to the Oilers. Ducks at 1-1-0. St. Louis at Arizona. Blues took care of the Avalanche in their first game. Coyotes, they are back at home after they lost in the shootout to Buffalo a few nights ago, and or back on Saturday afternoon. That was a 1-0 game. Arizona, Buffalo scored to tie it, and they won in the shootout. But Arizona comes home for their opener out in Glendale, and the Blues, they are about $1.70 favorite on the road tonight. So that's a look at the NHL and a loaded card coming up tomorrow, including Panthers Lightning. That's probably the showcase game, and also Avalanche Capitals. So we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. Also, you have the NBA, Nets, Bucks, Brooklyn laying 1.5 now at most spots. And the Nets went 0-5 last year at Milwaukee, by the way, in the playoffs in the regular season. And Warriors-Lakers late game, Steph against LeBron and AD and Westbrook and Carmelo and all those guys in the Lakers now. So the NBA season gets started tomorrow, and then a big slate coming up on Wednesday. So looking forward to that. And before we get out of here today, want to tell you about our friends at BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. And the promo running now, great promo. Bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. Again, new players only, must be 21 or older. Bet on any NFL money line, and if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. Eligible in Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C. Full terms and conditions apply. That is BetMGM. They are the king of sportsbooks. And before we escape today, Bills-Titans tonight. Buffalo laying 5.5 at Tennessee. Buffalo, they are playing very well right now. They've won 4 straight, and they're scoring a bunch of points. Tennessee, you don't get them as this rare of a home underdog, but we'll see if the books are overreacting to what Buffalo did against Kansas City last week, or if this is right, considering the Bills, they were blown out by the Titans last year, that Tuesday night game in October. The Titans had all those COVID issues, and Tennessee destroyed them. So we'll see what Buffalo does here in round 2 against Tennessee. And Buffalo, they're creeping up 5.5, 6-point favorites at some spots now. So we'll see what Josh Allen and the Bills do against Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, and the Tennessee Titans in Nashville at Nissan Stadium. We appreciate you tuning in for today's edition of the Daily Insider. My thanks to Dave Sharapan for joining us, as he does every Monday here on the show. I am Kevin Rodgers. If you missed any of the Daily Insider, you can find it on our homepage on VegasInsider.com, or go to our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider if you missed any of our conversation. Also, you can find the Bet and Collect podcast as well. That's coming out a little bit later today. And we'll take a snippet of our conversation, Dave and I's conversation, here on the Bet and Collect podcast. If you don't feel like watching, just listen to the audio part, and that's fine too. I am Kevin Rodgers. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow at noon Eastern right here on VegasInsider.com.